Hi, Taylor T. Carlson. And if you know me at all, by this point, if you watch this channel for any length of time, you know that I'm a fan of the Dragon Ball series. I mean, take a look at my shirt here. Take a look at this poster in the background. There's a closet off camera right over there that's packed with the SH Figuarts action figures that have come out over the last few years. Those will certainly be a story for another day. In the fall of 1995, when I was in middle school, I was sitting at home bored, not really doing anything, and on the TV there was this show I'd never heard of called Dragon Ball, and I watched it, and this was like the old pre-Dragon Ball Z dub of the first 13 episodes of the original Dragon Ball. And from there I was hooked, even if they only showed 13 episodes, and Dragon Ball Z didn't really come along until like a year later in America. Of course, skipping over a whole lot of the original Dragon Ball and confusing a lot of potential fans. But, you know, all of this stuff's a story for another day. I'll probably do a video on my history with the Dragon Ball franchise. But today we're looking at two Dragon Ball fighting games for the Super Famicom, or the Japanese version of the Super Nintendo. None of the Dragon Ball games on the Super Nintendo saw the light of day in America because the Dragon Ball franchise, of course, was not yet relevant stateside, so there wasn't really a reason to do so. The two games we're going to look at are Dragon Ball Z Super Butoden 2 and Dragon Ball Z Hyper Dimension. We'll start off with Super Butoden 2. The name translates to something along the lines of fighting story or battle history, but as the 2 may imply, this is actually the second game in a series of 3. The first one, honestly, was not that great. The controls were really sluggish and the character sprites were really small. And the third one actually made a few refinements to the fighting engine, but it wasn't as diverse a character roster, and on top of that, it didn't have a story mode. Butoden 2 is easily the best of the 3. This game's story has it set around the Cell Saga, so there is a story mode that you can play as, and you can go through this mode, selecting different what-if scenarios, picking from 4 of the 8 main playable characters, and then you play through, you fight enemies, you pick options, and you basically go where you want to go. I mean, if you can't read Japanese, you're not really going to know what's going on in the story mode, but you can kind of get the idea from the pictures and the animations. And there's a lot of guest characters that make appearances in said text scenes as well. There's also a standard versus mode where you can play against a computer or a friend, and you've got 8 characters selectable by default. You've got Gohan, Vegeta, Piccolo, Future Trunks, Cell, Cell Jr., Bojack, and Zangia. If those last 2 don't sound familiar, they were characters in the 9th Dragon Ball Z movie, Bojack Unbound. You can also enter a special code at the opening screen and unlock 2 additional characters, Goku and Broly. This was actually the first Dragon Ball game where Goku was not a default playable character. I don't know if there's ever been another game that it's like this, and it was the first game in which Broly was ever playable in any shape or form. Each character has their own strengths and weaknesses, a set of their own special attacks, and each character has 2 giant energy attacks that they can use. For instance, Goku has the Kamehameha for his weaker Mega Blast, and then his stronger one is the Super Kamehameha. Conversely, you've got other characters like Vegeta, who has the Big Bang and the Final Flash. And then like Gohan has the Masenko, Piccolo has the Special Beam Cannon. The list goes on. Each character's got a pretty diverse assortment of tricks of the trade. There's even an options menu you can pull up mid-battle where you can look up your move list, which is kind of nice. And if you don't want to enter the complex motions to fire those super moves, there's even an autoplay where you can just hit the energy button and it'll automatically do the strongest attack you can do at the time. That's pretty nice and handy for people that don't want to get too super in depth. This game plays pretty good, and I mean the action goes far across the screen in a split screen format, from everywhere from, you know, above the clouds to under the water, and plenty of scenery, including the likes of, you know, deserts, snowy mountains, grassy fields. You get a pretty good array of the Dragon World and the playable locations of this game. I only have a few minor complaints, but this is my favorite of the Dragon Ball games that were on the Super Nintendo. First of all, for being set during the Cell Saga, why are the androids not playable characters? This just seems like a total wasted opportunity. Instead we get Bojack and Zangia, who I think people could really care less about, honestly. I mean, Give me Android 16 and Android 18 instead. You know, diversify the playing field a little. I mean, Broly's inclusion as a hidden character I think is certainly welcome because he's a fan favorite. And this is certainly nothing against Bojack, who I think is a pretty impressive villain. I just don't think he's a character people are going to rush to play as. It's also very difficult to block and deflect the Mega Blasts that are launched at you, so it's like, when one of these is launched at you, you're basically screwed. You're going to be getting hit and you're going to be taking damage. However, minor quibbles aside, this is easily my favorite of the Super Famicom Dragon Ball games. If you've got a working Super Nintendo that can play import games and you only import one of them, go with this one. The second game on this list we're going to be taking a look at is Dragon Ball Z Hyper Dimension. This was the last of the Dragon Ball Z games released on the Super Famicom, at least the last fighting game. I know there were some RPGs and things, but I don't know if this came out after or before the last of them. Either way, that's not important. This one is set, like, you know, around the end of Dragon Ball Z, but it does throw in characters like, you know, Frieza and Cell to diversify the playable character field a little more. And you can choose from several levels here. The levels have other interconnected levels because there's even attacks where you can knock your enemy into another part of the level. Some levels have the traditional ground-based combat. It's all on one screen in this game, but then there's also levels and portions of levels where you're going to be in the air and you're pretty much in free flight. You can charge your energy in this game like in the previous game, but this time around, your life and your energy are the same bar, so you got to be careful with the way you play your fights. This requires you to take strategy into consideration. Again, each character has their own share of special moves throughout the game. For instance, you know, someone like Frieza has his Death Ball attack, Goku's got the Kamehameha, Piccolo's got the special beam cannon, Gotenks can do his Super Ghost Kamikaze attack. The list goes on. There's even attacks where you can dodge into the background and come back and hit your enemy, and desperation attacks you can launch when your life is really low. There's a 10-character roster. Disappointingly, no hidden characters in this game and not really a lot of locations to choose from, but of the Dragon Ball games on the Super Nintendo, graphically, this is easily the best looking of the bunch. There's quite a bit of fan service here for the fans. The story mode actually follows the story of Dragon Ball Z the best it can, from the fight with Frieza up to about the end of the series, with some what-if versus matches coming at the end. One thing I kind of like, too, is if you get a game over and you have to continue, the amount of continues that you have is the amount of sensu beans that Krillin is carrying. Disappointingly, Krillin's not a playable character in the game, but I did appreciate that and thought it was pretty amusing. And then there's the other little bits of fan service here and there, like, let's say you win a fight with Gotenks. Each character has their own victory poses, one for the ground stages and one for the air stages. If you win as Gotenks in a ground stage, the fusion wears off and he splits back into Goten and Trunks, and I just thought that was absolutely hilarious. I love little fan service and attention to detail like this in these games, and well, I do wish there were a few things in this game that had been done a little differently. Overall, I would say this is one of the better Dragon Ball fighting games on the Super Nintendo, and once again, it is a shame this one didn't see the light of day in the United States. Are you a Dragon Ball Z fan, and have you imported either of these games? Comment down below and let me know what you think. Also, remember to subscribe to this channel for more content. I'm always posting new stuff, covering a wide variety of topics, and give this video a like if you found it helpful or interesting. I'm Taylor T. Carlson. See you next time.